Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
What's up, everybody? This is your co-host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror-loving cinephile. I'm just your average podcast-producing badass.
I'm John Thomas. Some would say that I go a little too far with my love of all things horror, paranormal, and meta, but I say, talk nerdy to me, and I'm all yours.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our Dia De Los Muertos familia? In today's episode, we'll be continuing the discussion on Santa Muerte. Who exactly is Santa Muerte? What are the origins? Joining us in this conversation is Shane Roberts and BJ Segura. Join us as we jump into the world of Santa Muerte.
But first, a word from our network sponsor.
Are you looking for more awesome podcasts? Head on over to withoutyourhead.com for access to the Without Your Head podcast network, where you'll find a variety of podcasts sure to keep you entertained and coming back for more.
Welcome back, everybody. Like Ashley said, we've got Shane, we've got BJ, and we are talking crazy stuff. Let's do it. I'm too white. I can't say it. I'm not going to try.
It's not Santa. Let's start with that. It's Santa.
Señora Negra.
Santa Muerte.
Santissima Muerte.
We're not talking about Santa. I know Halloween's over, but we are not that group that jumps right into Christmas. So, Day of the Dead. We are on November 1st. By the time this airs, it will be past that, but that's okay. Right now, we are talking about the Lady Death on the first day of the Day of the Dead. So I think that's pretty appropriate, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Absolutely.
Granted that nobody from the cartel listens to this.
Shh. Hush. Well, Santa Muerte is so much bigger than the cartel. Like, it is 20 million plus current followers across multiple countries. I would say she goes beyond that.
Yes, and I don't think she's necessarily. I think she's not just criminals. It's everybody, right? Like that's something we'll get into. But doing some research, what did you guys find as far as like who actually? When did it start for you guys? What did you guys find out?
Well, when I first started worshiping Santa Muerte, it started when no, I'm just kidding.
On the playground playing tetherball.
When he joined the cartel.
Honestly, BJ, you were supposed to be at the last podcast, and I was a little disappointed that you weren't there. And I'm even more disappointed that you weren't part of that conversation because we made the discovery of, Santa Muerte when we were talking about exorcisms, and I actually started reading up on a lot of the exorcisms that were happening, or a lot of the priests being called to do exorcisms in Mexico, and we attributed that to the uptick of Santa Muerte worshippers, and it's a cult that's been around apparently a long time. But so I kind of was doing research on the last podcast, and found that it's possibly an offshoot or just another name for an ancient Aztec god, which was a consort of another god, but it was the Lady of Death.
Yes,
That's what I found out.
That is what I found out as well, and it's not. I found out a couple of different things, because that's when I went to CU Boulder. I studied anthropology, and we did get into the Aztecs and the Mayans and the Inca and a lot of that, a lot of different, the Olmecs, all kinds of stuff, and we talked about the underworld, right? And so that was a big thing about going through this, is that there's ties to her being part of that, part of the underworld in the Aztec traditions. And the Lady of Death, she would watch over the bones, right, and all of that. And there's a lot to who she was. If you contribute, she presides over the ancient festivals of the dead as well. But a lot of today's stuff, I think, it's both. It's both the Aztec tradition, but it roots in Catholicism, which I thought was interesting as well. So the question is it from the Aztec traditions, or is it? And I think it's person to person. I think it depends on who you ask, right? Because I think some people, it depends on where they're from. Like if they're from Mexico, they maybe believe one thing. If they're from here, it may be something completely different, right?
Yeah. I think it's honestly, I kind of am in love with the fantasy that it is coming from or stemming from. Uh, Someone correct me if if I'm saying this incorrectly. Is Mictlantecuhtli, but that was the Aztec god, right? That was
Yeah.
and I was reading on the worship of her declined. It didn't all go away once the Spanish conquered the Aztecs. It didn't decline. It declined a little bit, but it didn't ever go away. Which means there were still followers, or still believers of this god, and kind of got dispersed. I'm sure through Central America and then what is now Mexico. Which very well. I mean, that means the people that are worshiping her in today Central America and Mexico might very well be descendants of people who brought it from those times, and have been worshiping her and passing those traditions down from that time period, which is fascinating to me. I love that stuff.
I think that's pretty interesting. I watched a documentary on it, and some people were saying that this lady in the 1990s kind of brought her back, brought in Muerte back. Basically, started putting stuff out front of her house, and then people started adding to it, and so now she's kind of like one of the people that everybody shows up to. They're her family, and they all treat Santa Muerte as a saint, right? Even though because I think what is it, criminals, people who aren't necessarily welcomed by the Catholic Church, and I think that's a big part of it, right? That's the big thing is there's so many of these followers, and then if you ask the Catholic Church, they'd be like, "Nah, man, that's dumb. Like that's a false idol. That's not real. We denounce it." And even one of the people that was talking about it in his church, he was saying, he's like, "Yeah, they'll come back. They'll be back." It's like they'll worship the false idol for a little while, but they'll always find their way back to Catholicism. And I think that's super interesting. Like why would they go towards this to worshiping Santa Muerte? Why would they leave Catholicism, or did they leave?
So I think, we're looking at a few things. We got into this a little bit when we were talking about the curanderas, right? Like it rooted in the Aztec healing, but then when the Catholic Church influence came, the method of the curandera adapted and it kind of incorporated the Catholic practices while still kind of retaining some of their own. And I think when we're looking at the Santa Muerte, it's very similar. You have the death gods, and I believe it's Micteca Siwaro and Mictlante Glutil or something like that. It's hard to say. But those are your Aztec representations. When the Catholic Church came around, it was trying to merge them together, very similar. And so introducing the Catholicism and creating almost like this holy death, right? You've got these death practices, which they're not really morbid, like, oh, we want to die, curse everybody. It's just like we saw with the Greeks, right? Hades served a purpose. You have different deities serving different purposes. And so this was just another facet of that. And they merged together as best as they could. Something that came up for me when I was researching that I thought was really interesting is that there are some scholars that think there was also a heavy influence brought through the Caribbean by like African slaves. So that influence of similar to like Haitian and voodoo and like the Cuban Santeria, like that kind of stuff was merging all of that together. And we've got this culmination of those things, right? Like a melting pot of these different practices and spirituality into this very sacred death reverence type. I don't know if you want to call it a religion, but practice.
Yeah, I think that's very valid. And I like how you talked about the curanderas, because that was the thing that I saw too. Is that that's kind of what brought it back in the '90s? Was it was these healers, these women brought Santa Muerte back into focus. I think, and that's what kind of set it off. And then it kind of got. I mean, it went away, it came back, but I think the people that believe in it now is. I think it got its roots there again, maybe, and then it's kind of been going that way for a while. And obviously, it's like a protector image, right? A protector for people in trouble, a healer, but also death, right? And it's the cycle of life, right? That was the big thing with the Aztecs, all the cycle of life and death, and then you have to go to the underworld and go through the 9 different phases of it to get to a certain area. And yeah, it's pretty interesting. And my thing is, if it is multicultural and it's all over the place and it has roots, like you said, from all these different places, is it the same, or is it kind of like what we were saying, depending on where you're coming from?
I mean, the things that I've been reading on it seems like just even within Central America and Mexico alone, there's different references to just where this might have come from. There was what was her name? There was one lady. So it said originally it was suggested that Santa Muerta or Doña Sebastiana was in fact Doña Sebastiana de Caso y Paredes, the niece of Saint Mariana de Jesus of Quito. Sorry, and that was in the 1600s. And apparently, she was part of a society known as the Congregación de la Buena Muerte in the early devotional period literature, and I guess they kind of worshipped death to some point. But she at one point was going to be forced to marry someone against her will, and she prayed to death, and death granted her freedom from this contract by giving her it basically like a fever, and she died from it. And so because of that, people venerated her, saying that she was favored by death. But then I guess people have been in certain areas worship her, like she's the Lady Death in those areas. And then there's other places that are still worshiping just the bones. I think it's just the image of death, and it all may have stemmed from even earlier than the Aztecs.
Well, to them, it is a saint. It's just not a saint that's recognized by the Catholic Church. So she is the exact opposite of the Lady Guadalupe. And the Lady Guadalupe in Mexico and the Latin American, Catholicism is very strong. That's a very revered figure. So Santa Muerte is to them a saint. It's just not a saint that is accepted or recognized by the official Catholic Church. So therefore, it's wrong. Now, I know, BJ, at the beginning you asked, why would they turn away from the Catholic Church? But if you look at who the followers are, and it's not everybody, but a good portion of people that have turned to Santa Muerte, they are the ones that are rejected by the Catholic Church. So there is a high amount of LGBTQ community
Yep.
that's part of the Santa Muerte community, as well as prostitutes, as well as people that are addicts, and all sorts of different lifestyles that would be frowned upon and rejected by the church are accepted by Santa Muerte. Not accepted like, I embrace you, you're amazing, and that's fantastic, keep doing it, but more so, I am non-judgmental. And that's what a lot of the followers that speak to it online that I've been finding keep saying, is that she doesn't judge me.
Kind of like the same ideology of like Satanism, right?
Probably, I don't know. But to them, although she is death, she doesn't represent death. And a lot of them feel like she protects them from death. So even though she's Lady Death, she protects them, she cares for them, she doesn't judge them. And That's a big deal when we talk about turning away from the Catholic Church, because traditionally Catholicism is highly judgmental and highly selective on who's allowed to be a part of it. So to see this explode in the Latin American community, I could see why. Like it's hitting all of those demographics and populations that constantly feel rejected by their own community.
Yeah, and Santa Muerte is considered not a saint but a folk saint, right? Because of that, because it isn't recognized by the church. But yeah, I mean the whole criminal, just the just the gangs, the narcos, everything. Like that's a big part of it, right? Like Breaking Bad, right? That was another thing. There are shows, there are movies that kind of highlight a little bit of that,
Oh
and
yeah, the twins are seen going on their knees to her, right?
yeah, yeah. And my question is, because I actually watched I watched this lady, she was talking about how to channel Santa Muerte, and it felt very much like the uh the same thing that I watched with somebody that was talking to Lilith, how to channel Lilith. And it was a very it was this. It was a similar. It was very similar. The way it's like, this is how you reach out. This is you can ask for these things, and this is what these are the signs that you're actually in contact with Santa Muerte. And I think that the for me it begs the question: are there these false gods, or these other entities, if they do connect with them, under that guise, under that name of Santa Muerte? Is it because you're calling out to Lady Death, right? And who is that? I don't know, right? It's kind of one of those things. Like who are they actually reaching? Is there an entity?
That could be said for anything, though.
Right.
Like, I could be praying to any entity, like Lady Guadalupe or
Yeah.
Jesus or whoever. And depending on my level of desperation, we don't know who's responding to us.
Yes.
And you can have faith, you can believe, but ultimately, you don't know who's answering that desperate plea, right? So that could be said for any, and that's probably like super blasphemous of me, and listeners are going to be like, "Boo, burn the witch." But I'm just saying, like realistically, any figure out there that isn't a 3D person that we can see and touch and know that's who they are,
Yeah.
you
Well,
don't know who's answering.
that's the scary part. I think that's
Well, yeah. I mean, it even says, some of the stuff I was reading, some followers actually believe that the image of Santa Muerte should not be put next to other saints, otherwise there might be consequences. Which, to me, that sounds a little, I don't dicey. No offense to anybody that worships Santa Muerte, though.
I mean, is it dicey though? Because if the Catholic Church doesn't recognize her, and honestly, like researching online, like this, a lot of like the different government bodies within Mexico try to take away their legal protection. They're not recognized as a religion. They try to take away those protections that usually are given to churches because it's so opposed to the Catholic Church, and the Catholic Church has such a strong influence and power over a lot of government bodies. Who's that coming from? Who is that messaging coming from?
Yeah, I'm sure it's the people giving the giant middle finger to the Catholic Church and the governing bodies, basically, like, and it seems to me like the followers, it's more of like a rebellious, much like the pagans were back in the days of old, is the pagans were kind of ostracized and thought of lower life forms because they worshipped outside gods, that were not normal Roman worship.
But does it have to be a rejection or a rebellion in order to? Because that almost is like, well, we exist only because we're in opposition to the Catholic Church. Whereas I feel like if this is older than the Catholic Church, it's just a returning back to what was originally there for them. An embracing of their original culture before they were taken over, before they were forced to integrate, before they were forced to adopt something new. And although it's still kind of hybrid, a hybrid of things, because it still does involve mass in some extent and altars, and it involves, Catholic practices to an extent, it is a returning to what was there prior to, shedding and rejecting what was forced on them.
It's almost like a heritage too. I feel
Yeah.
like, try taking pride in your heritage. This is we're practicing what our ancestors practiced.
Yeah.
But I mean, honestly, it was all squashed by. So I'm sure there's hand in hand with some resentment towards the colonizers, um, which were Spanish, the Spanish at the time, the conquistadors, and they brought nothing but pain and destruction. And then Mexico evolved out of that conquest, right? So now you have a lot of the old ways mixed in with the new ways, and it kind of evolved into a new worship of that same god. It's just they call it something different now.
Yeah.
So I had a question about the Day of the Dead in Santa Muerte. Like it seems like they're obviously that they celebrate them both, but they're separate, right?
Hmm.
Is that what you guys found? I found that to be pretty interesting. How they're pretty distinct, but you know, to somebody just walking down the street, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, it's Santa Muerte's like the like the Santa Claus to you know of this." It's you know what I mean, like
Comes
to
out
put it
last
in
at the
a
very end of the parade, and like, yeah, oh, here it comes. Yeah.
right, but
Mm.
but she's not. She's very separate. Did you guys find that?
Yeah, Ashley and I kind of touched it on last podcast, where she actually made it a point. Hey, Day of the Dead and Santa Muerte are two different things,
Yeah,
because Day of the Dead is more of like a reverence to your ancestors, your
right.
past, your loved ones that have gone, and then Santa Muerte is more like, this is a symbol or a god or a deity or a saint that is we're making offerings to, and giving our praise and our thanks, because we believe that this entity is now giving back something to us and our community and our loved ones. They don't necessarily represent. Now, however, the old Aztec god was watcher of the bones, to make sure that the protector of the dead, the bones of the dead. That was her original title. So maybe they are similar. Maybe they are kind of tied together.
Yeah, and I thought also that each there was not just one version of Santa Muerte. Some of the idols they have different colored ones, right? That represent different things. Um, like one of them was like if you had a gold Santa Muerte that influences your money. If there's like a green one, like health, like there's all different kinds of versions of her.
And if you collect them all, you actually can put them together, and they make a kind of they
A
turn into
Voltron,
like a yeah.
God,
Voltron
ketchup
Muerte.
ball. Yes.
No offense.
I mean, in theory, they go hand in hand. They are separate entities of, separate ideas, but they do go hand in hand, because Dia de los Muertos is the time of the year where the veil thins the most. Our ancestors and loved ones that are passed then can cross over
Hmm.
and visit you. And, if you lean in really into the celebrations, it's really amazing, actually, if you've ever gone to like some of the celebrations, but also if you create an altar in your home with your family members. Thanks to the movie Coco, a lot of people started to understand what that idea is a bit more, which is amazing, because we hear death and we have this crazy fear
Yeah.
of death and Land of the Dead. And then you watch something like Coco and it's like, oh, that's actually not that scary. That's actually really beautiful. And it's like, yeah, that's the idea.
Yeah.
It's not something to be sad about or melancholy or, this morbid thing that's being done. It's a celebration for loved ones and ancestors that have passed, embracing them and welcoming them during this time of the year. I offer my reverence and love to you. If you want to come on over during this time, cool, high five. If not, that's cool too. But we honor you, we love you, we miss you. Whereas Santa Muerte is an entity. that it's not like a place or a time of year.
Right.
It is it's not a person, but it is an entity that represents something very similar. That where does she exist? She exists between life and the land of the dead. So it would make sense, right? That when the veil is the thinnest between life and the land of the dead, that's when they celebrate her as well, because that's where she survives, or that's where she exists.
Thrives or
Yeah.
yeah.
And, I know it's easy to get caught up in her name, and,
Yeah.
she's the saint of death. Like, that's what she is. But realistically, reading more and more into it, it's like she is very similar to the idea of Dia de los Muertos too. She protects, she, loves, all of these positive things. Now, that's not me saying go worship her. I'm not one to worship anybody really, so don't listen to me. Just face value. She's not as scary as her name sounds, at least for the followers, which would make sense why she's got 20 million plus and growing, right?
Yeah.
All the articles are calling it a cult. And I'm like, cool. Who's calling it a cult? Who's writing these articles?
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing that I thought was weird too is some of the things I watched were like these, these journalists, right? They're not necessarily scientific about what they're saying. They're not, I'm not saying that
Fake
science,
news.
it has its own bias obviously, but they're saying, oh well, I'm talking to this anthropologist, and but they're not necessarily saying it from the anthropologist point of view. They're just having it there just to have it, so that maybe gives their view is some credibility. And I think that, like what Ashley was saying about Coco, is that yeah, there's a lot of people that fear the unknown, and they hear death and obviously Grim Reaper, and that's where you get lost with people, and then they can't see past it, and so they won't, and so that's you know people from other cultures may not be as willing to see that, especially if they're, I don't know. I mean, it could be again, it depends on your religious background, right? Because you always have some sort of bias, right? And some people just can't connect with something outside of their own religion, to an extent that I don't know if it's an acceptance or if it's just like a, I don't know, like a mutual respect kind of thing. I think it's sometimes hard for, I don't know. Do you guys understand that? Does that make any sense?
I mean, for the symbol or for the god itself. Like you're talking about picking the one that you like, or like why does everyone kind of chosen this one out of all of them to relate to?
Well, why people are just afraid, or just calling it a cult, right? Like Ashley was saying, like calling it a cult, um, not looking past it, like actually something legitimate.
I don't know, man. Like it's people call people a lot of things, and I mean we can call the Trump supporters in America a cult. You can call Mormonism a cult. It's at the end of the day, it is what you make it. And for something to have existed this long
Yeah.
and has thrived, I mean, to me, it's thriving because for as many people, thousands of years, later, the Aztecs have been around. Then it went into they even survived the Spanish conquest. Now it's into modern day Mexico, and now it's even in the U.S. For me, that qualifies as a religion. I would call it a religion. You can call it a religious cult. You could all call it a religious sect. But I mean, look at Christianity. Christianity has all kinds of different sects, all kinds of different branches and offshoots. Not
Oh
sect,
yeah.
SECTS. Get your mind out of the gutter, Ashley.
Denominations maybe is
God.
another
I
word.
was there too. Sorry.
I mean, look. I mean, Catholicism. You got Calvinism. You got baptism, and there's Pentecostals. That there's nut jobs in those too. So it's like, but they all kind of go under the umbrella of one religion. So who knows? The worship of Santa Muerte may be even an offshoot of Catholicism or Christianity. Although
Don't tell the Catholics
they're
that.
they're not really worshiping Christ, but who
I
knows if they
think
don't worship Christ?
it could be both though, right? Like,
Yeah,
and that
it
was
could
the
be
thing that
both.
I found is that like some people think that it's an offshoot of Christianity. Some people think it's obviously goes back to the Aztecs, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it could go both ways, right?
Well, I mean, look at the Knights Templar. So one of the first things that I learned when I became a Freemason was the Knights Templars' use of memento mori, and that's actually I have a symbol on one of my rings that I have of the skull and crossbones. When they buried a member of the Knights Templar, they crossed their femur bones because what that resembles is, or memento mori is Golgotha, which is the place where Christ was crucified, place of the skull. And that has been used ever since then, and now has gone into Freemasonry. The Knights Templar is an offshoot of Freemasonry, and they revere death. However, one of the main things that you have to be is a God believer to be a Freemason. That's what the big G in the middle of the symbol and the square and compass mean. So I think, to your point, BJ, you can do both. You can revere the Lady of the Dead, and you can worship God and maybe be a follower of Christ. Who knows?
I mean, it's not a can. They're not worshiping her as a god or a goddess. She's a saint.
Right.
Just like the Catholics have how many saints?
Right.
Like, I've lost count of how many saints
Which,
there
by the
are.
way, one would think that would be even crazy, right?
Yeah.
Because, like, I'm not Catholic, and I think that's bizarre, the worship and adoration people have for normal human beings that were walking this earth and go in the church, go,
Yeah,
yeah.
and so she's a saint. So I am willing to bet that a lot of people that practice, the Santa Muerte actually do believe in and worship God. They're just not worshiping in a way that the Catholic Church condones because they revere and pray to Santa Muerte. If they were praying to the Virgin Guadalupe, which statues in Latin America of her are bigger, than Jesus. I mean, they're everywhere and she's prayed to more than Jesus Christ probably when we're talking about Catholicism in Latin America and Mexico. I've been to masses in Mexico and let me tell you,
I've
she
been.
is a celebrity. And so
Oh yeah.
this is just a different figure that they are doing that to, but because she is representing the space between life and death and represents death, she's a no-no. And, that doesn't mean though that they don't believe in or worship God as well. She is just a different figure that they revere as opposed to the Virgin Lady Guadalupe. But death is scary. And so and again, that probably speaks to way back in the Aztec days. We all know the death gods and goddesses were a big deal. The death ceremonies, a lot of the Dia de los Muertos practices are very reminiscent of kind of some of the celebrations from back in the Aztec days that carried over. So this is probably just another aspect of that that's been reclaimed.
Thinking about that, it it has me thinking of my dream that I had last night.
Ooh, tell us.
Oh God, this is weird. Okay,
I like weird.
so it was a death dream.
Oh.
So I was just walking around with somebody, and it's just hang with me with it. Okay, so for whatever reason, my brain was like, all right, this is like post-apocalyptic. In the dream, my mind was like, all right, this is like zombies or something. And then I even ran into like Rick Grimes, the character from Walking Dead, which was random. And then I was looking for somebody, and then and in the dream I found them, but then I actually had to sacrifice myself for everybody's well-being, basically. And then I was laying down, and they put like ceramic, like convex things with symbols on them on me, like a bunch of them. And these are all I don't know where they were from. There's just these. I would say they were indigenous people, like Aztecs. I would say that they were. It was people that were from a long time ago, I would say, and I couldn't tell you who they were. But then I felt myself fading away. Like, if you guys have ever, um, God, how do I describe this? So like if you've ever had anesthesia, but like a little bit slower and warmer and pleasant. And so I just fell into a dream. I fell like into this state of being where I just it was almost like I melted into the bed, and then I woke up climbing, and once I got to the top, a hand reached out to me and pulled me up, and it was Muhammad Ali of all people, which was very, very strange. And he pulls me up, and there's just people, just all different races, all different cultures, everything. And it was just this overwhelming sense of warmth and love, and I was just overcome by it. And it wasn't necessarily faces of people that I knew. It was just this presence of just familiarity, despite looking very different from everybody there. And then I this being, this entity, talked to me and said, "You're a kind person. Be kind and teach those. Like when you go back, teach those who don't know how to spread kindness the way to be kind." Which was again, also very weird. And then I woke up in the dream, and I like went straight to the bathroom for some reason, and then I just walked out, and then I woke up. And then when I woke up from the dream within the dream, like I still had that overwhelming feeling of emotion and love, where when I woke up in my bed, it was like, where am I? What is this place? It took me a minute, like I would say a good 20 seconds to figure out, like, oh wait, I'm in Colorado. Oh wait, this is my name. Oh wait, this is where I'm at. And it was like I've only had a few dreams like that where I felt disassociated when I've woken up to reality. And the only way I can describe it to you is just that overwhelming sense of emotion and love, and different state of being that kind of knocked me out of reality, and took a minute to recover from that. So it was crazy, but not really sure what all that means. But yeah.
Were the sheets wet when you woke up?
Wait, what message did he give you again?
To be kind and to teach those who don't know how to spread kindness, how to do it. But yeah, it was.
That sounds amazing. I wish I had that warm feeling.
How many edibles did you have before bed?
Yeah, that's the next question.
No,
None.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
That's crazy though. That's trippy as hell.
That's pretty cool. What a coincidence that you had that right before this podcast too, on said topic. You know,
That's what brought it up. Like that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about what we were talking about just now, and just the practices, the death, the lack of fear. That's the thing that also was very clear to me, is just the lack of not being, or just being happy, or being almost like looking forward to it, kind of thing, which was
memento
crazy.
mori. Remember that we all must die.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And so yeah, so that's what I woke up to, and yeah, and just doing this research and stuff, it kind of mirrored some of the things that I saw, and what I felt, and yeah, it's
When you were in heaven, Muhammad Ali grabbed your hand and pulled you up. Did you guys then all in synchrony break out into Backstreet's Back?
yes.
Everybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
No, this is the end. No, this isn't that movie.
Because that would have been pretty cool.
No, and so like for me, when I have dreams like that, I don't necessarily know what to do with it, right? Like obviously there are dream journal. I put it in a dream journal, obviously.
Oh, you did write it down though.
Oh yeah, oh
Okay,
yeah.
good,
I
that's
mean,
good.
it's still with me right now. Like it connected with me so deeply that like it wasn't one of those dreams where you would forget.
Mm.
Like I said, like that was more real than my reality in my bed when I first woke up. And
Ashley,
so
don't you have somebody that does like dream translations that you know that was on a podcast once upon a time ago?
Yeah, but roll with me here. Let's just think about your dream for a moment.
Okay.
Roll with me.
No, you were literally in the land of the dead, right? The Walking Dead. And then you had this ceremonial thing placed on you that then helped you communicate with someone who's no longer alive. You had Muhammad Ali, who represents like grace and power and strength and kindness and all of these things, right? To you, that's probably what, I don't know, maybe he doesn't represent that to you.
Oh yeah, no, he does.
To me, what I hear is that you were in between, which is, like Shane said, very appropriate considering what day it is. You had literally the dead, the Walking Dead on one side, but then you had the actually deceased. You had the representation of love and grace and strength from the other side. And you were able to stay kind of in each side because of the ceremonial thing that was on top of you. To you, you felt like, oh, I'm being, it's a ritual because I'm dead. But maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was something symbolic that helped you exist in both places at once. And you received your message from the other side that was so strong that you woke up feeling it. But not only did you just feel it mentally, you felt it completely through you. You felt the kindness, you felt the love, everything that you're supposed to give in your 3D waking world. It was remembrance, right? Like, remember this, carry this with you into your world. I don't know. That's what I got from that.
BJ, did you have that dream before or after you knew about this podcast happening, about what the topic was going to be?
I guess it would have had to been. I mean, it was last night.
So did you know what we were doing before last night, though? Or did you find about it today?
I think it was. I think I knew about it, right? Ashley, I think we talked about it. I didn't do any research.
Yeah, we talked about it on what night was the Lost Boys? That was Monday night. No, we asked him at the theater, and he said, "Yeah, I can make it happen." So
Okay.
it was Monday.
So do you think that would have influenced that dream a little bit? Or maybe she was giving you a message?
Maybe. I don't know. I didn't connect it totally to this until this conversation, right? Because it just happened, right? And I'm still trying to make sense of it. And what Ashley just said makes total sense. Because like, why would I jump from a Walking Dead scenario to this other scenario in between, and the
Yeah.
ceremony part of it, and because for me, I was like, why didn't I see anybody I knew? That was my question, right? Like that's where I was like messed up a little bit, but I don't know.
What do you think about that, John?
I knew
waiting
he
for
was
that to
going to
come.
do it.
Yes,
I
I was
almost
waiting for
did
that.
that to you earlier. What do you think about that,
Yes.
John?
Honestly, though, you said that you didn't recognize any of the faces, but people say that everybody in our dreams is somebody that we've had some interaction with at some point in our lives. So therefore, who knows? I mean, maybe they could have just been people that you walked by or people that you said hi to or something. But I think they were somebody that you've seen at some point in your life.
But Muhammad Ali, that was the
I
that was the
mean,
craziest part, and he was
that's
young,
that's cool though.
like
But
he
like
was
what
great.
Ashley said, I agree with what Ashley said. Maybe that's what he represented to you, and that's just what you needed to feel at the time. So
So
Yeah,
it's mental images. I think oftentimes, even from like an empathic sense, and I think you said you've got, you know,
yeah,
some empathic gifts. So your mental images are going to be driven by what you feel, the energy you feel. So in your dreams, if you felt a very specific energy, let's say like in that aspect of like The Walking Dead, that world of it was apocalyptic. So what does that mean to us when we talk about apocalypse and The Walking Dead? It's a sense of hopelessness, helplessness, or like the world's in some shit right now.
yeah.
And so that energy and feeling might mentally evoke apocalypse and zombies to you. And then let's say you got a message, right, from another thinned veil. Let's just go weird here. And you're getting a message from that other side. Well, that immense feeling of love and strength and all of that, maybe that's just the mental image that came from those sensations. And so it's not like you literally saw Muhammad Ali. It's just maybe all those feelings, that's what your brain put together. And this is, this is what we're showing you in this world because that's how you're processing it.
I can buy that.
Good, because I'm selling it. No, I'm kidding.
You are selling it. Yeah.
How much? $50.
Process.
I think that's one thing about me is that because I'm part of it, it's harder for me to step outside of my own dream and see it for what it is. I think because I was in it, you're too close to something that you can't see. That's where I think I struggle with some of my dreams, especially something like that. Um, when it hits you, for me, when you get emotional like from a dream that much, it's hard to. I mean, you want to know why. You want to understand, but you're also like, how can I get back there?
Do you want to go back there?
Kind of.
Because Day of the Dead still continue. The veil is still thin until like 48 hours from now. So go to sleep.
Right. And then last night of all days, right? Like, I don't know. I think it's pretty sweet. I love to dream, and I love to have dreams that, conjure up any kind of emotion, and I don't know. I don't know what the purpose is, but it's fun.
Where do we go when we sleep?
I don't know.
Can I tell you guys though, after our episode we recorded last week, shit was popping off at my house. Like I went to bed and kept hearing all sorts of things. Like someone was walking. I heard music playing, but then when I turned my fan off, there was no music. And I'm like,
Oh no, it's not la.
nah, you better stop it. Stop. We're not playing that game again. No, but I do think, given there's a lot of things, because I'm meta woo woo weird like that, we just had a full moon, we've had eclipses, we have the veil thinning, if you believe in that, for Dia de los Muertos, which I do. So it's like, there's a lot popping off. And actually, Emma came downstairs to me this morning and said, hey, I think her grandpa who passed away, she's like, I think he visited me. And I'm like, what? She's like, I was getting ready in my bathroom and it felt like someone walked in and was standing there. She's like, but it felt like love. And she's like, and I just had a feeling like it's Grandpa Joe. And I'm like,
Oh,
huh. I'm like, okay.
tell her to shut that tap off real quick.
Shut that tap off.
Stop it now. Ignore it.
I
Just
can't
ignore it.
stop it. And I'm
She's
not going to
be
make
able
her.
to either.
I'm not going to make her afraid of it, honestly, because I think for me, I grew up with that fear because of religion. So I don't want to put that fear on her. So I'm just like, I told her, I said, if you're not comfortable with it, you got to make your boundaries known. Like if you ever feel like a spirit is visiting you that you do not want there, I'm like, you put your boundaries in place and say, you're not welcome here. And I wish you well, you need to move on. And I'm like, otherwise, they're
As
just
long as
gonna
she doesn't
keep
hear any
happening.
crying. She should
Oh,
be
shut
fine.
up. Anyways,
That's awesome. I mean, that's a good mother thing to do, right? Like to be open and to not judge, but also to protect, and I think that's great. And it sounds like she might have the same gifts, right?
if she feels it, if she can feel that, like, yeah, probably. Here's my thing. Most of us have been raised in the generations where if you do feel things or hear things or see things, you either have a psychological condition or you're possessed. And I don't want to perpetuate that because I refuse to believe the world is that black and white. And so I'm trying to normalize within a healthy aspect that kind of stuff within my house. I firmly believe, though, like Shane was saying, if you don't want that in your world, though, you absolutely can make that decision and set those boundaries. And that's also kind of what I want to teach is that just because I believe something or I embrace specific things doesn't mean that like my kids or any familial extensions need to. If this is not your world, put your boundaries down. say this is not for me. I don't want it. You're not welcome in my realm. And that's okay too.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Just because I'm comfortable with watching Chucky brutally murder a teacher with a ruler doesn't mean my kids are going to be comfortable with watching that same scene.
Oh my gosh. I mean, for sure. What I'm uncomfortable with is that my 5-year-old is so comfortable with watching that stuff.
You know what though? Leo was too. Leo. Literally, I bought him a Chucky plushie because he literally Chucky was his hero, which was a little disturbing. I was a little
A little
concerned,
bit. That's awesome though.
and he had no problem with watching those movies. And then one day, I think with his cognition advanced a little bit, and that he refused to watch certain scenes, and then altogether he's
Oh,
like, "Yeah,
good.
I'm good. I'm good."
Empathy
Um,
kicked in.
yeah. I was like, please don't be a sociopath.
Honestly, I think little kids just love it. The curiosity, the danger, the excitement. Like my 6-year-old nephew last year went as the Grim Reaper. Like he was
Mhm.
seeing him at like Spirit Halloween, just checking out the different sickles and all the things. It was so funny. I was
Yeah.
like, he's like, I don't know about this one. The weight's not quite right. Like
Oh
all
my
that kind of
god.
stuff. Like it's hilarious. I'm
That's
like,
awesome.
that is my nephew. Like you are amazing. Like
And some
so.
kids they stick with that. Like they're that through and through. But I think with like a lot of the scary stuff, it's like their cognition kicks in, or they're not aware of the details that young. Like what
Yeah.
goes into it. They're not like, oh yeah, he's actually killing a teacher. Holy shit, I didn't realize that before. Okay, I'm not gonna watch this anymore. It's too creepy. So I don't know. For me, it's I don't know. But Santa Muerte. Anyway, Santa Muerte, I feel like she's influencing all over the entire world, not just Mesoamerica, not just Central America, not just Mexico, not just U.S. I mean, one of the main symbols that she had is uh, what do you call it? A scythe. The reaper. Um,
Children of the corn, baby.
well, that symbolizes her reach across the globe. Um, a lot of the other symbols, were like the hourglass. The hourglass was to resemble or to symbolize the fact that death is not the end, because these hourglass you can turn over and start time over again. So death is just the beginning. Mummy quote there.
And I think it's great. Again, as like a whole globe, we have this very extreme fear, present company included, of death. And so there is this uprising, this embracing that this is not it. This is not the end. And that the world does continue past this, and there's so much we don't know, and it does blur a little bit with new age. It does blur with spirituality on the metaphysical realm, and I like that people are creating things that work for them. It's not, well, you have these 5 religious choices you can choose from, pick one, see which one you fit in with best, or pick none of them. People are finding what feels good to them and what is their truth, and I'm down with that. People want to say, well, it's a cult and there's mutilations occurring because of this and that. And it's like, what has been done in the name of God?
Yep, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, let's not even begin to scratch that. But like, in the reality of it is people feel welcomed and embraced and safe and protected. Fuck it. Roll with it. Go with what works for you. Don't mutilate anyone though, please. That ain't it, but
Well, and the thing you just said about, everybody fears death in some way, not everybody obviously, but like I think the other thing I read was that during the pandemic, Santa Muerte became very big as well because of everything that was going on.
Mhm.
Um and like you said, I mean, it's because of the pandemic that globally we've all been woken up to an extent of our own mortality and as a species, right? Like just things life is fragile, and our own existence, the way we are living, our own reality, our own social construct that we have built can crumble easily. And so you gotta people have started to question what else is there, because me going to school every day, me going to work every day, this isn't life. This isn't everything. And pandemic, I think, woke a lot of people up who weren't, because there's a lot of people who are already like, yeah, like we know there's more, we believe there's more, we're interested in it. But I think for globally, more people are now aware and
Yeah.
searching it out.
Well, today is the day of, or this time of information. We all have access to it at our fingertips at a moment's notice. And, there's always been some sort of sickness, some sort of war that's kept us in touch with our own mortality, because we are frail bags of jello that cave at the least little thing. And I think the death has always been there as a symbol to either fear or respect. And the ones that have carried on the tradition of respecting the symbol of death have carried that throughout the ages. And now more and more people are finding out about it. And unfortunately, some bad people are finding out about it and doing things in the name of Santa Muerte that are scary. But there's also some people who are still revering death as a folk saint, that are just average folks that get by and still carry that tradition, that carry that torch.
I think the pandemic too, like Revisit season 2, forced people to stop. We're on the go, 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 and distracting ourselves, and everything the constant chatter, that we don't sit with ourselves. And I think that really forced people to slow down, stop, sit within themselves, and realize there's something else. There's something more. And people started really delving into new age spirituality, metaphysical, and finding what that is. Because I think at the heart of it, most of us, when we stop and sit with ourselves for an uncomfortable amount of time, we feel it within ourselves that there's something quite there we just can't quite reach. There's something there we just don't quite get yet. And I think people are trying to find that. And I think fear has caused a lot of people to only look at the light, but you can't have just light. You have to have dark too, because dark doesn't equate evil. And so, it's like let's worship the Virgin, Lady Guadalupe. Let's worship this figure and that figure, and all of these things, and it's all light. But sometimes you got to remember, like you said, to respect the death, to understand that there are things outside of us that maybe we don't get yet, but we can respect that too. Like the Land of the Dead. You watch Coco. I love Coco.
Yes, that is a great movie.
It doesn't mean it's evil. Like it's a dead world,
Yeah.
so it's all woo evil.
Well, and just like Coco, I mean, it's Coco. The what do you call it? The La Ofrenda. It's all about what? Honoring your loved ones, but that's their legacy. Like you are their legacy.
Yeah.
And you're honoring them, making you their legacy. So, and I think that's the biggest reason to respect death is you have to remember that everyone dies. So what are you going to do with your life? What are you going to do with your life? How are you passing the torch? How are you going to build your legacy? I mean, we're all on this podcast because we want to do something that we're remembered for. We want to do something that means something. Everything we do in our life, from our kids to our art to our craft, it's all based on what I want to be remembered by. We don't just do it to do it. That's our legacy.
I do it for the present moment. I forget about the future sometimes. And then when I do remember, I'm like, oh shit, I said that. People are going to listen to that. Oh man.
Honestly, I think there was a lot of that in seasons 1 and 2, and now you're just like, fuck it. Like, whatever.
I just like to be in the moment. And because we talked about this recently with one of our other guests, that oftentimes we get so caught up in the everything else, the planning and the trying to figure out what is the meaning of life, what is the purpose of this, that we forget to actually live, to actually be in the moment. Like,
Yep.
yes, it's good to think and meditate and explore within yourself, but we want to balance it and remember to be present in our moment. And for me, when I'm in these podcasts, I'm in every single moment and I love it. And sometimes when I'm editing, I catch like, I can't believe I said that because I was so in the moment. I'm like, do I cut that out? No, I'm going to leave it. Just like this, just like, Dia de los Muertos. It's remembering not just life, but death as well. And the in-between, because there is an in-between. Oops. And I hit my microphone.
Shots.
Shot.
And that's why I come here to learn from you guys, because there's so much.
That's why I
you
come
guys
as well.
know. Yeah, it's great.
Oh,
What?
man. Nothing.
BJ fell right into it. How sticky is it, BJ?
It's gross. It's so gross.
Whenever BJ's on the podcast, I come. I have to.
Oh, Lord. Sorry, BJ.
Come for the
I'm
laughs.
leaving this in, just so you know.
He's honored guest, BJ. I was really sad that you couldn't make it last
I
one.
apologize. I was driving in the snow and it was terrible.
Yes. Yeah.
I will say this. I think that when it comes to Santa Muerte and it comes to any cultural practices that have a reverence for what is beyond this life and this realm, there is a benefit to that because there is an appreciation and gratitude where we came from, like you were saying, Shane, our legacy provided by our ancestors, what we have now, where we are now, because we know it's not infinite. It all has its next phase. I don't want to call it an end because there's what happens after. It's just the next phase. And then also makes us maybe be less afraid of what will eventually come to be that next phase. And it's not a cult. I know
I
that
don't
has
think so
to
either,
be
yeah.
like that has to be organized religions having say and bias on those articles, because if you look up what a cult is, this is more of a, like Shane said, it's a religion. It's not a cult.
Well, I mean, I would just go with like time in service almost, time in service and in amount of worshipers. I mean, cults are what you say like I don't know.
Like the Freemasons?
That's not even a religious movement.
I'm kidding.
It's a fraternity. I mean, I would call probably
Don't you downplay the Freemasons.
Jehovah's Witnesses a cult more than I would.
He's gonna get us shut down.
I mean, listen, if there's any Jehovah's Witnesses or Mormons listening, I'm sorry.
Mormons now? What else? What else do you want to throw in there?
I'm
What
sorry.
else? I know, right? Who else are we offending?
Or Trump
Oh my
supporters.
gosh.
I'm sorry.
Shane,
I'm sorry.
mouth closed.
I'm sorry.
And that's the last time you have Shane on as a guest. I'm sure.
people
Are you kidding?
People from Colorado.
I'm sorry, anybody from Colorado.
Wow,
Fake news.
yeah.
It'll get colder.
Anyone that believes the moon landing was faked?
Santa Muerte is really cool. Probably the most best god ever.
I mean, I guess you could say we're getting kind of serious.
Oh my God. Also, those that you believe that the world is flat. I apologize if I offend
It's
you.
not?
I apologize.
Fuck.
Prove it.
Dude, I just climbed up the edge of the earth last night.
Did you really?
I did in my dreams.
In my
Muhammad
dream.
Ali helped him up.
With Muhammad Ali's help.
Yeah.
In my dream.
Yeah.
My dream.
Did he have strong hands?
Yes.
Take my strong hand.
Take my strong hand.
I'm not a child, scared child.
Oh my gosh.
Strong hand. I'll give you a standing ovation.
Oh, wow.
You take the turkey and you stuff it like this.
Oh.
shit out of it.
Oh, that's
Hey, I
And
know what that
with
is, but I'm gonna lick that too.
Oh, God. With that, do we have any final thoughts?
I have a confession to make. I've never seen Coco. Sorry.
You should watch it. It's a beautiful
It's an
movie.
amazing movie.
Beautiful.
And the entire movie was created by someone who was Latina or Latino from that culture, from Mexico. They incorporated every little bit of it, and man,
I would hope
it
so.
was beautiful. I mean, I would hope so too. I think Disney's getting a little bit more hip, or Pixar. I think they're the same company now. But yeah, they did an amazing job.
I'll check it out.
I was like, I want a fucking Sholo dog for sure after that.
It gets you in the feels, that's for sure. It's
I
definitely worth
cried
watching.
so many times.
I
Yeah.
learned
Papa?
like all of the songs on that movie on guitar.
Well, now I don't want to watch it. I don't want to cry. Fuck that.
My papa wrote me this, Papa.
Oh, stop. I'm
I
gonna
know,
cry. Don't do
It
it.
makes me cry. Oh
Guys,
my gosh.
it is super windy in here or something. I don't know. Dusty. Ooh.
Anyways, and that's how we made BJ cry. Cry and come all in one episode.
Ew.
Y'all started that. All
It's
right.
true.
John, you need to watch Coco. I finally watched Cabin in the Woods. You can watch Coco.
Oh,
Cabin in the
thank you
Woods
for
later.
watching it.
You watched
I'm
Cabin in
gonna-
the Woods?
She
What'd
loves
you
Finally.
think of that? What'd you think of it?
I liked it a lot.
I surprisingly I liked it too. I thought it was actually entertaining. That was the one where they go down in the basement or like the
Yeah.
underground facility, and there's all. I loved
Yeah.
with all the monsters were in the cubes and stuff.
I thought
Yeah.
it was so creatively done. Like the satire on that was just, it was fun. I liked it.
Yes,
Yeah.
it
They
was
even
well
had
done.
some Left 4 Dead characters in there too.
I really enjoyed it. I thought it was well written. It was executed well. It really married the horror and the humor well. So I liked it. I'll be watching it again.
I told
Hell
you it was
yeah.
good.
We all told her it was good.
No, it was just me.
All right. Well, I don't think anyone has any more comments on Santa Muerte. So happy Dia de los Muertos to all of my
Absolutely.
friends and family and listeners. And John Thomas, bring us home.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, BJ, for coming on to this episode. Thank you to all of our listeners for listening to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I am Ashley, Lunar Goddess.
And I'm guest host BJ Segura.
Yeah, yes.
And I'm Shane. Que pasas buenas
Yeah,
noches.
yes. I want nachos.
I'm going to kick y'all's asses.
If you have any questions, comments, episode suggestions, please feel free to email us at 300podcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss any crazy moments with all of us. Come on, you know you don't.
Hasta la próxima vez. Just kidding. Until next time.
Hasta la vista, baby.
Bye-bye.
Baby.